was Leanne.
Oh, okay.
And
Well, then I will call this meeting of the Tillamook County Solid Waste. Oh, not ready in the back? Sorry. Okay. All right, I will call this meeting of the Tillamook County Solid Waste Service District Budget Committee together. Call us to order at 12:31. Our first item of business is to elect a chair. Do I have a nomination for a chair?
Madam Commissioner, I would like to nominate for Solid Waste Service District Budget Committee Chair, Mr. Stoker.
Okay, so we have a nomination. I will second that. I assume we need to take a formal vote. Is there any discussion with a motion and second on the table? No discussion, then we will go ahead and I will call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, we are electing Mr. Stoker as the chair of the Budget Committee. Aye, okay, unanimous for all of us. So, Mr. Stoker, I will hand the meeting to you.
Thank you. Okay, I guess the next thing is kind of a budget summary, right?
Yes.
Following the list here, so I'm waiting for you.
Thank you, Mr. Stoker. And thank you for participating and becoming chair of the committee. It's much appreciated. So thank you for your contributions and being here today. You as well, Ken, as always with SWAC. So
Microphone, so Justin, do you have your microphone
Yeah, it's a
on?
bit far off. Is that perhaps better? I would think.
Yes, got a thumbs up
Better.
from our technical lady in the back.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for being here today. Today we're here to discuss the proposed fiscal year 25-26 solid waste annual budget. So kind of big picture, we projected for last fiscal year, we were projecting a decline in revenue in terms of garbage into the transfer stations, which, maybe on one hand is better for the environment with less garbage, but unfortunately our budget is heavily relied on garbage in and garbage out. So we were down forecasting a little bit with last year. We did see with the numbers and as with the haulers as well, increases in quantities of solid waste coming into the transfer stations. So that results in increased revenue, but also increased disposal costs with John G. Jaber Recycling. And so those two tend to kind of mirror each other. They do balance for the most part. Where we did find some difficulties this year was with some stormwater management and our hazardous waste program. Those are some of our two most expensive expenditure items that don't have a revenue source behind them. With garbage, we collect and we charge for, the receival and we pay for disposal. So there's that revenue to support it. But with stormwater and some of the hazardous waste, those are challenging as there's not a revenue source directly supporting those. So it made things a little bit tighter this year, but again, we are seeing the garbage trend going upward, and we also have the new recycling law kicking in July 1st. And so we've incorporated some, as we discussed at some of the recent board meetings, a lot of uncertainty with what the funding will be deployed, what we can use it for. I do know transportation costs, most likely July 1 will be covered. So we did our best, me and Chris Lady, we worked on the budget with projecting out the garbage through the end of the year, as well as anticipating some funds coming through from the RMA. And so let's go ahead and we could take a look at the revenue sources and happy to answer any questions, but we'll go down. Beginning balance, very similar to last year. In terms of where we're landing, we're seeing garbage up, but again, some of the costs with stormwater and hazardous waste are reducing that proposed beginning balance, but it does mirror significantly our proposed 24-25. Everything beneath that in terms of service charges and interest, we held steady with. I think our interest did come in much higher, but in talks with Director Leahy and with the interest, I think the treasurer, you do your magic, and that's can kind of be up and down. So we left that at 30 just as a solid placeholder. The surcharges, we did downgrade by about $35,000, and that was just a misallocation of the Tillamook surcharges. Tillamook money gets funneled a little bit differently than Manzanita and Pacific City. So really that 35 grand is going to be included into the solid waste fees right below. So the money out of Tillamook. As mentioned, we are doing our best projections, and in our narrative here, it does say somewhere further in it, but you know, it is a moving target a little bit with in terms of garbage in, garbage out and projecting those. So we did have a projection of a slight increase, about $200,000 with solid waste fees. And so that's payments for garbage disposal at our 3 transfer stations. Miscellaneous revenue under there for 30 grand, slight uptick. I'm hoping with the new recycling law that they'll be able to connect us with more end-of-life processors for mixed paper. More materials are going to be accepting, so I'm anticipating a slight uptick in revenue from our recyclable materials. We want to do our best to recycle as much as we can. Unfortunately, markets with the China sword and the amount of scrutiny they put on lows going to China has really made the value and moving the recyclables a bit of a challenge. So I do anticipate a slight uptick there. And then the last revenue stream there, miscellaneous revenue at the bottom under our RHC category, which is recycling, hazardous waste, and code enforcement. That's where we pull a lot of money for our outreach efforts. And that one took a significant bump upward to 80 grand. $40,000 of that is a $3 per capita fee that would be coming from the CAA, which is Circular Action Alliance. They're the ones running the new recycling law. And so we worked with the cities throughout the county to submit the paperwork, and they will be receiving $3 per capita of the population within the city. And then the county as well, based on unincorporated population, rough number, I think 15, 16,000 times $3, we got to the $40,000 mark. So that money is earmarked, as I mentioned, for specific uses for education, outreach, reader board, signage. So we will be able to spend it. I do anticipate some cost savings there, but we can only spend that on specific items. So, and then again, big picture with the RMA, I am hoping for some cost savings with transportation for Don G. Averill to transport materials to the Portland, Beaverton area. And there's also going to be some hopefully a new baler in Tillamook that would be covered. That's probably a couple years out, though. We are on the lower priority funding in terms of the new recycling law. The coast is listed, I think, 5th or 6th because we do have solid infrastructure, and they're prioritizing Southern Oregon at this point for infusion of funds. But we will be getting reimbursed for education, transportation. So I do foresee, you know, hopefully best case scenario 26, 27 with increased revenue from the Recycling Modernization Act. Perhaps we wouldn't have to go out for a rate increase for our garbage, solid waste. Again, our contract with Don G. Averill Recycling is tied to CPI. And so, you know, if we stand this inflationary trend, we will have to raise rates for him, but possibly we could offset that with some of the recycling money and not have to raise rates again. I did want to note in the rates, I think I mentioned at our last meeting regarding commingled rates, that's going to be a big, as we get more curbside going throughout the county. Currently, we're charging 111 tons per, $111 per ton for commingled. So they take the blue carts into the truck, dumped in Tillamook, and then we bale it together as a commingled recycling load. And with that rate, I do anticipate as we're reimbursed for transportation, they're going to probably cover some costs in other places that we could potentially reduce that. And that would be a savings for the haulers, which could then be passed on to the consumers or the rate payers for the services. So I do think we'll see some significant changes in the revenue and hopefully some saving expenditures with the new Recycling Modernization Act law that starts July 1, but it is kind of a 6-month soft implementation for DEQ's words, and we're kind of doing a lot of fact finding. There's a lot of unknowns. So we will see how that all unfolds, and hopefully there'll be some positive impacts on next fiscal year budget. Any questions for anyone on the revenue sources as we move?
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Account number 4363, I see an actual of 244 and 2324. I see a decrease to 235 in your proposed budget. Why is that?
That number, the service charges are based on the $12 per property tax within the county. And
I never know if that's gonna go up or down, and so we've just flatlined it at 235. It could go up to
So you
2.
just kind of guesstimated that that's going to be the amount coming in.
Yeah.
Doesn't match our actuals from 2 years ago. Okay.
yeah, it does tend to fluctuate, but yeah, I think that 235, like Sean said, is a nice solid
Okay.
middle ground on
Okay.
that.
Got it.
Okay. So in terms of expenditures, With our employee and personal services in our narrative here, predominantly fixed costs are not going to fluctuate much from the past fiscal year to this. I think there was a slight increase in personal services by about $4,500.
So we're in bargaining currently right now, so there is a built-in 5% because we don't know what the negotiations are gonna bring out at the end of the negotiation. Also, late last week, I was notified our retirement for employees that were hired before 12/31/2025. The actuarial amount was budgeted at 34.1% of payroll. It's actually 34.4% of payroll. So there's an additional $1,000 that I'll have
Right.
to just get in there.
All right.
So, but it was late, I think it was Friday that I found out about it.
Yeah.
Little update.
Thank you for that, Sean. So again, in terms of staffing, we have 3 in Manzanita. 2 is the intent in Pacific City as we move towards constructing our new building down there to hold more recycling and processing. It will be a 2-person operation, so we're setting ourselves up for that moving forward. And again, there's been ongoing talks with other county departments to produce a shared code enforcement position. And so that is as you see in total full-time equivalent, we have 6.5. That's the 6 full-time employees, including the half-time code enforcement officer, as well as we are hoping to secure some funds for a potential internal promotion for one of our leads in Pacific City. Again, we're hoping to make that a 2-person operation. We'd like to elevate her to take on more of an administrative role, help with some of the weeklies, and kind of learn and progress to one day replace me, hopefully. So yeah, we're looking to do that with our Pacific City lead employee. So in terms of expenditures for personal services, fairly consistent with last fiscal year. Not many changes in terms of materials and services. We've either held steady or downgraded. Fuel, we went from 5,000 to 3,000. I would like to go to more conferences. It's been a struggle to get over to Portland with the workload, but that would obviously use some more fuel. And as we potentially elevate an employee to a transfer station supervisor, they would be moving around the county more and using more fuel. But currently, we did downgrade that to $3,000. Otherwise, everything else looks to be going down. And kind of touching on what I just mentioned about traveling, training, bringing people up and sending them to potentially some conferences. We did add an extra $1,000 to the travel, training, and mileage proposed budget for the new fiscal year. Otherwise, we had a nice cost saving with the indirect cost allocation from the treasurer. So that was cut in almost half, which was pleasant. And that's contingent upon how much we use service. I know it's a bit of a black box, Sean, but how much we use county council and
County council, BOC, treasurer's office, payroll, HR, and you had quite a bit of turnover in 22, 23, 23, 24, where you were utilizing a lot of HR services, I think, at the time.
yes.
So that accounted for quite a bit, and there just was not as much
Right.
use.
And that's delayed 1 year, is that right?
It is delayed 1 year, yes.
Yeah.
The solid waste service district held pretty steady as far as HR and payroll went the prior fiscal year. So we didn't have all that turnover, which accounts for a lot of it, I think, when we were coming, especially when you were coming before the board, every time you had to replace a person.
Thank you for that. So yeah, that puts our total materials and services proposed budget is significantly less than last year, so 148,850. And then we do continue to transfer $100,000 we're proposing to the sinking fund. That's going to help us cover some of our construction costs at the Pacific City and Manzanita transfer stations, which is currently ongoing. And we've projected an unappropriated ending fund balance of $271,837. So total administrative expenditures, just over $1 million, 1.166333 for administrative expenditures for the Solid Waste Service District. As we move into transfer station expenses, big ticket item there in terms of expenditures would be our contract with Don G. Averill Recycling. These costs include waste hauling services across the 3 county transfer stations, and this budget in category was increased to 2.9 million due to anticipated increase in quantities collected and the cost to haul for disposal. So as you can see, our actuals, 23 and 23, 24, right around 2.6. We were projecting a downgrade this fiscal year. We put it down to 2.5, but we're seeing that swing back the other way and increase fuel costs and such. So we have bumped that up to 2.9 million to cover our costs there. The other big increase in this budget category is the monitoring right below 7205 account number, and that is for predominantly stormwater management. So we just recently received our 1200Z permit in Manzanita about a year and a half ago. So that requires sampling, a solid waste pollution control plan be on site. There's just more contracting and working with consultants. So between that and Tillamook, which Tillamook, as we know, we had a DEQ inspection and some unfortunate outcomes that we were working through with the civil enforcement penalty. But we've been making some good strides with keeping the site clean, everything where it should be. But there is some issues with the leachate coming off the site with high levels of lead, copper, and we have an E. coli issue that we're working to figure out. So these have been on DEQ's radar, and it's something that has been kind of lingering. So we spent more money, unfortunately, this year. We had some exceedances with our samplings. We had to do a tier 2 corrective action report, which added another 15,000 for engineering, figuring out the new bioswale that we're going to have to construct here in the next year and a half. So moving forward, working with Parametrics, who is our contractor, we're going to be looking for maybe some grant opportunities. I mean, those have been drying up a little bit from my conversations with the county grant writer, who's been a great resource and a great help, but we might look for some stormwater grant money to help cover some of these costs. We're also looking, as we'll talk about at the end real quickly, the 430 post-closure landfill reserve fund, which has just over $1 million. And so we're working to maybe release a couple $100,000 of those funds to put towards management of the closed landfill, maybe worm remediation, getting clever, but it's a big ticket item. And so we've got those funds sitting there. We're going to see if we can utilize them and still be in compliance with DEQ. So monitoring took a big jump from $10,000 last fiscal year to about $50,000 for this fiscal year. Everything else, unfortunately, to accommodate the monitoring increase, we did downgrade the repair and maintenance building and grounds and repair and maintenance and equipment budget categories by about 10,000 on one and 20,000 on the other. So we want to keep our buildings, in tip top shape. But as you can see, the actuals have tended to floated between 20 and 30. So we're being more in line with what we've actually spent in past years. But that was in an effort to help cover some of those increased monitoring costs. So those are the really 2 big ticket expenditures in the transfer station budget category. Totals for expenditures in the new proposed budget, about a $365,000 increase, again, from the stormwater and from increased costs for garbage hauling. So just over $3 million, $3.655 million for our expenditures in that budget category, and then $100,000 for an operating contingency there as well. Any questions before we keep moving forward? Mr. Henson?
With the RMA, do you foresee any increased expenses like days of operation? Thinking of Pacific City, are we going to need to be open longer? Will there be additional expense because of the RMA load?
That's a good question. I can't foresee any. No, I don't think Tillamook's the only location technically because of our population that has to meet some of the more stringent criteria, accept all the materials. I do want to have us be consistent across all 3, but yeah, Pacific City and Manzanita, we can be flexible in terms of what we take. Transportation costs will be covered. Yeah, I can't foresee, but as things roll out, I mean, that's definitely something might pop up. Yeah.
And then in order to access funds from the post-closure reserve fund, what has to happen from a county perspective for solid waste to be able to access those funds?
We talked a little bit yesterday at the SWAC meeting about this. The consultant shared with me a $15,000 proposal to do the research, do the legwork to potentially release some of those funds. We had a conversation about that $1 million threshold, whether that is a number that we cannot go below. So if we cannot drop below $1 million, we will likely just leave it as is for now, because we are just slightly over that $1 million mark. But yeah, there's going to need to be some work from the consultant, financial planning, go to DEQ, propose it, approve it. And so there'll be some heavy lifting. And in terms of exactly what the county has to do, I'm not sure what those working parts are, but I'm hoping the consultant can really, cover all our bases and
I think I threw, since I see him online, I threw county council under the bus as to whether or not those funds could be accessed to, if they would have any insight when that was created and why, and what the restrictions are on it. So hopefully Joel's still listening.
we will keep moving along if,
He unmuted.
And I have a couple questions, but I'll kind of wait till you're finished with your stuff.
Good afternoon. I apologize. I heard my name. I was on another call, but if someone could just repeat the question, or I could follow up with Sean afterwards and get an answer.
So I threw you under the bus. It's probably going to be a longer answer than just what needs to come out in here as far as when the sinking fund, is that right? Was created, the $1 million threshold, if it can go below that, if the funds can be used for something, if we hit a 10-year mark or something with DEQ. So I think both Justin and I will probably be reaching out to you to find out when, how, and if we can actually access those funds for solid waste. Yeah, post-closure. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely need to look into that and have a little, do a little research.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
just
saw
reach
you-
out. We can discuss it.
I saw you online, so I was throwing you under the bus. You're welcome.
No, no worries. No worries. That's what I'm here for.
okay. Yeah, we will be doing some more conversations on that, most definitely. We'll keep moving along. So into the closed land. Mr. Stoker, did you have any other questions?
I may be getting ahead of myself, but I have a question with regards to contracted services.
Sure.
And what I'm looking at is line item 410004. I understand you're going from 9 days to 6 days in regards to disposal of hazardous waste. Is that
Cor-
correct?
That is correct.
Now, do you see any extra cost, or by reducing that, you're going to have more quantity on the days that you're open? So I know it was a very important program for the community.
Mhm.
And I'm just kind of wondering why we would do something like that. That's so important to the citizens that I've talked to.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, yeah, costs have been rising over the last couple years with hazardous waste. We did the reduction to hopefully have cost saving. It went from 9 to 6 events. There's about a $4,000 per event mobilization charge. So right there, it's 12 grand, which isn't insignificant, but not a huge amount. We left it at 120 because we do have an expiring contract with our hazardous waste provider on July 1. And so we will be going out for bid here soon, securing a new provider before our August event. And so whatever the proposals come back at, I'm not sure exactly where the costs are going to be at this point. And so we just decided to leave it at 120. Hopefully it's a high estimate. It'll come in lower with less events. We'll have a competitive bidding process, but we left it at 120 just as a high ceiling with the uncertainty around the new contractor and the new contract being secured.
Okay, I'm just kind of curious because I know it's a very important program, and I'd like to see it stay at 9 days
Okay.
instead of the 6. $12,000 is not much to find within your budget here. That's just my thoughts. Okay, next question I have with contracted services
Mhm.
is you Solid Waste Service District with the Oregon with DEQ. Why have you put that under line item 41004 and not 41002?
That one is included. Yeah, I put it under contracted services 7105 in materials and services.
I'm just wondering why you changed the line items on that.
Yeah, why not under the transfer station? I think because this is money is going to be funneled to Tillamook Estuaries Partnership for a septic program for septic replacement. So it wasn't a transfer station contracted service where the 41002 is. So the rationale there, I think, was education, outreach, code enforcement. I thought the septic program kind of fit nicely in there. So that's not something, we've typically had $200 spent in contracted services under 41004. So it's a big jump, but that money is really just allocated specifically for the TEP sponsored septic program.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your questions. All right, I see the time is ticking away, so we will shift back to the closed landfill expenses category 41003. These are fairly consistent. We do have about a $10,000 increase here. And that's for monitoring. Again, that's for the closed landfill, leachate management. I'm just anticipating a slight uptick in those funds. And potentially, if we do able to release some of the 430 post-closure funds, that would cover these costs. So that would be best case scenario, but anticipating to absorb those in other places for now. And then our last expense category, RHC expenses, which is recycling, what's the H? Hazardous waste and code enforcement. So as we talked about the contracted services there, that 13.5 is for our civil penalty with DEQ, and we're putting that into a local septic program. We do have the code enforcement program, so $15,000 allocated there. That's on top of the halftime position that we've allocated as well. So there's, we're definitely squirreling away some money to support the code enforcement efforts as we've had some positive conversations as of late regarding those. And yeah, hazardous waste program, we're holding steady at 120,000. And then we had a slight reduction in recycling and promotion, about $10,000 less to 25,000. And so that will be, that's mostly for print ads, education. I'm hoping some RMA funds will infuse that or cover some of those expenses as well. So our total expenses for 41004 categories, 180,000, very close to our budgeted items last year. And, you know, a little bit higher than some of the actuals we've seen in the past. So overall, solid waste fund revenue expense summary, we have a total resources of $4,587,433. Our total proposed expenditures for fiscal year 25-26, $4,205,596, with $100,000 contingency, $271,837 unappropriated, for a total reserve of $371,837. Any questions on the 410 fund before we move on to the 420? At 420. This is our sinking fund. As I mentioned in the 410 fund, we've been transferring, I think it was more in the past, but we did $100,000 last year, $100,000 this year. Because you can see in the revenue portion at the top, we've got state grants at 690,000. Those are our overflow stormwater grants, which are from the feds funneled through the local state, and we have no match on those grants. So those are a great asset to us for our construction programs, and we're currently getting reimbursed and working through that. Transfer from solid waste, as we discussed, 100,000, and then the loan proceeds at the bottom there are our state revolving fund stormwater based grants, and so those are 50% forgivable with a very low interest. I think it's variable, but around 2%. I think when we went through the process. So once we expend all the grant funds, we're going to move into the loan process to finish up the projects, and then we'll have the payback and the 50% forgivable on those loans. So projected revenue just over 3.5 million. Expenses are going to be for the $300 for consulting. The contractors are working with Great West Engineering. And then we, I know before my predecessor left, he worked with Sean to identify the 28,000 and the 61,000 in the principal payments and interest to figure out what those payments would look like once we start expending the loan funds. So that may be triggered this next fiscal year as we're the Manzanita project is rolling and we're getting Pacific City going here soon. So and then capital outlay, and we've got the 746,000 and the 1.7 million. Those two add up to the 2.5 in the loan proceeds above. So those are the capital outlays for the SRF loan money. And we have a small bit of contingency there, very similar to last year. And overall total expenditures, and again, this depends on how fast the projects move along, but we're very grateful for the grant and loan money, but just over 3.5 million for our 420 sinking for our capital improvements at Manzanita and Pacific City. And this page threw me off. I think we can move to 430 quickly, and that's just going to be the post-closure landfill. So as you can see, we have just over a million, 1,090,864. Somebody working with County Treasurer Sean Blanchard, County Council, to see if that $1 million mark is a hard line, and if we can tap into that, My proposal from the contractor said at least 300,000 could potentially be released, but we're gonna figure out the legality of that. And that released money would potentially be put, and this is a newer development, perhaps. Well, I'm sure this is gonna be a long process, so we could put next fiscal year proposed expenditures in this category. So we're gonna work to unlock the funds and then we will, move towards line iteming those in next fiscal year, I would say. So, happy to answer any questions if anyone does have any. Mr.
I have a question with regards to capital outlay for your transfer stations. Can you explain? I see you have not included Tillamook Transfer Station. Are you not putting in a capital outlay into Tillamook Transfer at this time?
So Tillamook, I would say there is a need for infrastructure improvements, and we're hoping the RMA can get us possibly a new building. We need more covered space for more storage, a new baler. And then the other big issue with Tillamook is stormwater, and we're hoping to release some of those funds to manage that issue. My predecessor, the big push was we've expanding garbage, growing county. We're seeing more. The two transfer stations needed to be kind of shored up infrastructure wise. And so expansion in Manzanita, building in Pacific City. And so when he moved forward with securing funds, those two sites were prioritized as they needed the upgrades. And so the overflow stormwater money and the loan money is only allocated to those two sites. So we don't want to forget about Tillamook. It's our main hub. And there has been talk about redoing the traffic flow and redesigning, and that's, millions upon millions of dollars a project. And so, as soon as we get Manzanita, Pacific City, I do want to turn my attention to Tillamook in terms of traffic flow infrastructure. But right now the big issue is stormwater. And so I'm hoping we can deal with that with some of our strategies for the next fiscal year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions?
None for me, thank you. No question.
Have any public input with regards to what's presented to us today? Nothing? Come on, okay.
Members of the public.
Here's Louise. Okay, deliberation. Any deliberation on any of this, Ken?
I guess I would ask if we look at line items, see if I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself. The dollar per month solid waste service fee for developed property. Could you remind me what that is?
That was put in place many, many years ago. It goes through the tax department. It's on your tax statement. And I don't think they've looked at updating or changing that.
I believe that was passed by, was it a ballot measure? And we talked about that at SWAC and it was $12 and they were surprised it was passed. And so no one's even gone back and thought about raising that as of late. So,
Thank you.
Commissioner, do you have any questions with regard to this?
Not for me.
No,
Any other?
no.
Very straightforward.
Okay, I got,
Great questions. You're doing fantastic.
thank you. I have some experience with regards to the line item budgeting stuff. Okay, so we're through with deliberation with regards to this. Okay, so next is the approval of $1 per month solid waste service fee for development property. Any questions or concerns with that?
And the approval of the budget.
And the approval of the budget, sorry.
Okay.
I'll catch up.
I approve.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve the budget for the solid waste service district as presented and $1 per month solid waste service fee for developed property.
I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we got it. Okay, if there's nothing else, I guess we can adjourn and move on to your next budget.
Yes, we will be moving, probably take a really short break, Debbie, I'm assuming, to stop the recording, start the recording, and then we will move on to the Tillamook County budget.
Hey,
Thank you.
thank you, everyone.
Wow.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.